Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast, the essential podcast for fathers navigating the complex but rewarding journey of raising daughters. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I'm thrilled to bring you honest conversations with dads and daughters, sharing heartfelt stories, actionable advice, and real daughter perspectives that will help you be the best girl dad you can be. All right. Hey, Elliot. Welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thank you. Good. After everything, all of our interactions, it's kind of cool and fun to get to be on your podcast with you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.
All right. So I would love to just kick it off with you introducing yourself, maybe talk about what you do for work, where you're from, and a little bit about your family.
Awesome. Yeah. So currently, I run a financial firm, outside Kansas City. It's a small boutique firm, specializes in, helping to structure sales of people's businesses when they exit to protect them from taxation. Got into this after a career in the military. And it was actually while I was in the military that I had all of my children. Well, my daughter was a few years old when I went in, but the other three kids, I was literally in the military for, and deployed a lot. So my last two daughters, one was my son was 2 weeks old the first time I deployed. My second daughter was 3 days old, and my last daughter was 2 days old. So they're all definitely military babies. A lot of that experience kind of translates over to how I raised them and why I did a lot of the things that I did. Now they're all older. My oldest daughter's 22 and married, and then my son's 18 and works with me. And my two youngest are 15 and 13. So in those prime teenage years,
The best times, right?
it's definitely where you're going to find out if you did anything right when they were younger.
That's too funny. Well, love all of that context. You do have quite an impressive and diverse background. And we actually met at a business mastermind in Jackson. And there was a lot of things that I appreciated about you right away. But I think one in particular was your direction and advice. You just seem to always know what to say and just give great advice in general. And so once you heard
That comes from a lot of failure.
But you know what? I think in general, you really do give good advice. And so once you heard about my mission with Girl Dad, seemed like you immediately offered feedback. And fast forward to the end of last year, we ended up putting on a great event for your clients who have daughters. And we talked about how to set your daughter up for financial success, how to talk to your daughter about money, and how to include your daughter in your world. So that was super fun. Loved doing that with you. But I think it'd be a really fun thing to kind of chat about some of the lessons that we discussed and how to help your daughter with finances and helping her understand how to think through things when it comes to wealth and success.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool event. My clients actually, really enjoyed it. It's just kind of interesting because a lot of what I learned actually about money, the positive parts of it came from my mother. So it's kind of interesting to me to think that like lessons learned from my mom went through me and then went to my daughters.
Right.
Right. And so, I didn't even really think about this until I was on another podcast. They were kind of exploring, how I ended up coming from the military and the financial industry. And through that conversation, I pointed out that I have two brothers and all three of us are investment advisors. And I kind of made the joke how you did something wrong as a parent when all three of your sons all end up in the money business. But they're like, they're asking me why I thought that was. And it actually took me back to when I first started working when I was 10. And by working, I just mean babysitting other people's kids, which back in the 80s, I guess they let one kid babysit another kid. I don't know who in their right mind's letting a 10-year-old babysit their kids in 2025. But in 85, I guess, it was all good, right? So I would babysit. I'd get paid, sometimes in brownies, sometimes in popcorn, sometimes in cash. If it was cash, I'd come home and my mom had a spiral bound notebook, a 3x5 note card book. Um, and she'd help me make columns in it. And the first column was the date, second column was who I worked for, third column was 10% to tithing, the next column was 50% to savings, and the last column was 40% to spending. And I did this all the way till I was 15. Once I had enough cash in my savings saved up, took me to our local bank, opened up a bank account, put that money into there, and just continued to contribute to it. And when I was 15, she brought our family's financial advisor in. He sat down, I remember it clear as day, at our kitchen table, and I made my first investments into the stock market. I remember at 17, wanted to go to Europe for the summer with a bunch of my friends, so I sold off all my shares in Dr. Pepper. The only reason I own Dr. Pepper is I like Dr. Pepper. It's not investment advice. uh, like Dr. Pepper, bought Dr. Pepper, and made enough on it that I was able to go spend a few weeks in Europe with some friends. And so that just really laid the groundwork, right? Um, that combined with, I feel like my parents were very open and transparent. Like we knew as kids when times were good. My parents were kind of serial entrepreneurs. So we knew when times were good, you're in Europe for the summer. We knew when times were bad, we were all as kids helping out with the bills. Right. And I think that transparency, along with like my mom teaching us how to track, there's a saying that you can't expect what you don't inspect, and that if things aren't measured, they're not actually ever gained. Right. So my mom taught us how to measure it. She taught us how to track it. And I think that kind of imparted things like just the seriousness of money. And so you fast forward, and I just ended up doing a lot of the same things with my kids. And so all my kids from an early age have had bank accounts, checking, savings. We put them on credit cards with us. We create investment accounts for them. Every one of my kids has had an investment account since they were 10, managing their money. And there's just so many awesome lessons that they get to learn based off that. I think at one point one of my daughters wanted a brand new iPhone, and I'm like, well, you have a iPhone, it's like two versions outdated or something, and I'm not going to buy you another one. But if you want to take money out of your investment account, have at it. It only took one time of doing that, and she's never used it for something like that ever again. It like hurt her to
Hmm.
have that $1,000 come out. If I, as her parent, had just gone and gotten her a new iPhone, there would have been none of that emotional connection to the cost,
Hmm.
and she would have, learned nothing, right?
Right.
Um, so all those, I think all of that kind of went into when I met you and I heard about what you were doing, and also at the time too. I think I had just gotten divorced,
Hmm.
if I remember correctly,
Yes.
and and um, and I and there's just a lot of things that get brought to the forefront when you get divorced. And so it just became even more important to me to make sure that like I was on the right track with my daughters and getting like outside perspectives. Um, and and I just really believe it's very important for a father to really be involved in their daughters' lives. And so when I saw what you were doing, it just really spoke to me, and that's kind of why I've tried to be an active participant in your mission ever since. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And thanks for all those stories. I think that's really going to resonate with a lot of dads in the audience. I think navigating finances is really difficult for everyone, whether it's, a daughter, son, just any sort of parent-child relationship, because everyone kind of has their own money story and history. And it sounds like your mom in particular did such a good job of teaching you these kinds of things. But a lot of people don't have that background either, and it's challenging. It's like, how much do you share? How do you help people or your children be set up for financial success and understand finance in general? I feel like a lot of people just don't talk about it at all, and it's kind of a disservice because I mean, it's like you as the parent try to figure things out on your own, and then you grow up and then you don't instill any of the lessons on the kids, and then they have to go and figure things out on their own. It's just like a repeated cycle of that, right?
absolutely. And what I find really interesting is it's like, to me, the two most important topics are such taboo, and they're
Right.
money and sex. And in American culture, those are just things you don't talk to your kids about, right? And yet they're the two things that are going to really impact their life, right? And so those are two things that we don't shy away from talking about in our family. And we've got to see like a lot of really positive things come back from us by willing to put all that out in the open, and take the idea of it being taboo and not talked about off the table, especially as like your daughters navigate junior high and high school and adulthood. And I mean, it's just, you just think about all the areas in which those two areas of your life kind of impact you, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And I think, for better or for worse, with you, it's like there's no conversation that's off the table, right? Like you are very open and but it's refreshing and it's funny and it's fun. And I think that's why people adore you, and people like to work with you as an advisor because they know that you'll tell them the truth, right? And like you're completely open. So I think as your daughters, are navigating, and your son even are navigating adulthood and figuring things out, it's good to know that they can come to you for anything. And I think, for a lot of dads, some of these topics are extremely awkward and maybe they don't want to overshare, and that's totally fine. But I think this idea that your children can come to you no matter what is an important thing to instill, because that helps develop the trust and the transparency. And that's something that I knew I could come to my parents even if I messed up, or if I was in trouble, I could come to them and they would help me without judgment. And by knowing that, I feel like I really avoided trouble and didn't really have to use that much. But it's because I had that connection and trust and willingness for them to be open with me about things.
Right, right. Absolutely. And, I always hear like, parents always talk about how once your kids become teenagers, like you as the adult are dumb, you know nothing. Your kids are all smarter than you. And somewhere in their 30s or 40s, they'll come back to you and acknowledge how smart you were, right? Or something like that.
Hmm.
And and it was just really interesting because when my oldest daughter went off to college, much to my chagrin, um, I'm not a fan of most universities. But when she did, she was in this math class, and I told this story at your event that we did. She's her largest class was math. She was the youngest student in it. She was the only kid in the class that had a credit monitoring app on her phone, knew what her credit score was, had her own credit card, um, had her own investment account, had been managing her own investments for at that point 8 years, and so it was like there was two moments that were like I had really proud dad moments. That was, she called me up to tell me about that, and she was so like appreciative
Hmm.
of how farther along that she was by us incorporating all this into her life at such an early age. And then the other one was there's a TV show on Hulu. It's a reality TV show called Special Forces. And she called me up after she got done watching it. And she's like, "Holy cow, I finally understand why you raised me the way you did." And that was pretty awesome too, because you don't expect to get that as a dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was just kind of cool to have your kid at, she's 22 now, and to have her understand like how important like a lot of these things were to her and
Hmm.
how they're benefiting her already at the age of 22.
Yeah, no, that's I'm sure really nice to hear. And I think a lot of dads don't get to hear that until later on, like you mentioned. It's hard, as a teenager to recognize, and a young adult to recognize all the hard work and all the things that your parents, but especially your dads, are doing, especially behind the scenes too. So that validation is great. And I know that there's a lot of dads out there that aren't getting that. So I just want to say your daughter will appreciate you, and she will appreciate the hard work, and she does. She just hasn't vocalized it quite yet. I love the credit card story and the credit score. That's so huge. And I think, it goes back to what we were saying about how you have to take action to help your daughter learn about money. It doesn't just happen naturally unless you kind of allow for some guidance. And really, she learned best by having access and doing it herself, right? It's not like, here's how you manage your money and then you do it for her. She's there, she's got her app, she's got her credit card. I think the best way to learn is just hands-on like that. So
Oh, absolutely. There's
yeah.
one of the most valuable lessons I learned from a course called Landmark was that there's no access to being by knowing, right? Everybody knows that they should eat healthier, they should be more organized, they should be more proactive, and yet so many people are not, right?
Hmm.
You can know it all you want. I can tell you all I'd like. That doesn't really impact you. You have to you have to experience it for yourself in order for it to become part of how you are, right? And so I think that's one of the hardest parts of being a parent. And I love this quote from Jordan Peterson. He says that as a parent, you have to allow your kids to do dangerous things safely, right?
Hmm.
And so that's always one of the hardest things is to sit back and allow your kids to fail, right? We hate seeing them sad. We hate seeing them hurt. Um, and so that was another thing that we did. I think we spent a lot of time telling our kids about how you're gonna fail. It's important to fail. Life's about experimenting. You can't experiment and not fail.
Right.
I would always tell them just be cognizant of when you're doing something, is the potential to fail irreversible, right? If you drink and drive, you could kill somebody and there's no getting that back, right? When you're having sex with somebody, you could get pregnant. That's going to be a tough thing to deal with. Just, so just keep these negative outcomes that aren't reversible in your
Hmm.
mind. And other than that, like go have at it, right? Because that's to me like that's what life's about. It's like it's about exploring. It's about figuring out who you are, figuring out what you want, and you can't do any of that without failing. And I think when your kids know you expect failure, right? So many, it's like reverse, right? Like, oh, I expect success. Well, I kind of was like, I expect failure. Nobody, the only people that don't fail aren't trying to do anything, right?
Fair.
So
Yeah.
get out there, have a great time, do whatever it is you want to do. Just, make sure that if you are pushing the limits, you limit the negative outcome. That's it, right?
Right.
They do it financially, they do it in relationships, they do it in work and business, and it's just awesome to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you're teaching them how to mitigate risk and you're teaching them how to fail, more importantly. And I think that's something that my dad did a great job of as well. And I always think about golf when I think about failure because it is a tough sport to learn how to play. And during those trying times where you're, shanking hits and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
so
right.
frustrated, you learn a lot of lessons. And one of the biggest things that my dad would always say is that every shot counts. And in golf, it really does. Like a beautiful 300-yard drive matters as much as a 2-inch putt, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you can have the 300-yard drives. If you can't putt, it ain't doing you any good.
Exactly. My dad would also say drive for show, putt for dough. But the point is, you can go and hit the worst shot of your life. And that is a moment when you decide, am I going to let this impact me or I'm going to move forward and focus on the next shot because it's already behind me, right? And so teaching how to fail is an important thing to instill in your children because you're right. Like they will fail, they will hit the bad shot, but it's all about how they come up to the next shot and what that attitude is like. And if they're ready and willing to take another shot or if they're going to quit and go home. And so I think yeah, that's a great thing that you've instilled on them. And I think it also helps them just navigate life safely because they understand risks and they understand rewards and they understand, where how much risk they're willing to take to try something new or, whatever it may be. So yeah,
Yeah,
no, I love that.
right. I always tried to raise my kids with this theory that I'm never going to put a rule on them I can't enforce.
I like that.
And then in addition to that, I try to put very little rules. I try to give them like principles or ideology to live their life off of, right? I think rules, you get stuck in situations where they get broken and then you view yourself as a failure or like you're bad for some reason because you
Hmm.
didn't follow a rule. And I'm kind of like, fuck rules. How do I want to live my life? Let's try and make sure I'm living my life in congruent with how I want to. And so it's just a different way of approaching it. And so I just taught them, like, I just try to explain consequences, both sides, and let them figure out what they want to do.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, the more rules you have, the more likely they're going to be broken, right? So instilling principles and guidance is an amazing way to kind of avoid that. And, I think kind of a funny story related to this is one time I was driving with my parents. I was not driving, I was in the back seat, but we passed by a Denny's and I was like, "Oh, can we go to Denny's for dinner?" And my parents said no. And they like didn't explain it right. And I was like, okay. And then the next time I saw it, I was like, Denny's, can we go to Denny's? And like, no, we're never going to Denny's. And so it became this thing that like I was never going to have Denny's. And I was like, I guess really bothered by it. I didn't even realize how much that bothered me until I found my old journal from when I was like, I don't know, 10 years old. And I had my dream life journal, right? And so I had an architecture, like a blueprint of my future house. And I was going to be a spy. So I had like lots of different little secret entrances that went here and there. And then I had my future husband and it said name. His name was Georgelle. First of all, first red flag. Second one, it said job, Denny's. And it was like, so I was so obsessed with Denny's and this idea that I couldn't have it, that I wanted to marry a man who worked at Denny's. That was my dream life. And so I think it just goes to show you that putting boundaries, and I know that that was a very, simple, that wasn't really a rule that they even instilled on me. It was just like a
Yeah,
flat
just something
no.
taken away from you with no real
Yes.
understanding of why. And what is that? That's just human psychology. Is
Right.
now I want what this thing is.
Right. I mean, if they just explained to me that, maybe it would have set my stomach, I'd be like, okay, never mind, right? Like, but
No,
there
it's
was
just
just no
can't let anybody
explanation.
die.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no explanation. And
Yeah,
I I just became, interested in the what is this, this world of Denny's.
yeah,
And so,
yeah. And we see it all the time. My kids, people comment all the time on how like they never see my kids eating candy or cookies or cake or any of that kind of stuff. Well, anybody that knows me knows I am not a health nut. I I am not by any means. But again, just because we never tried to limit it, and it was just interesting because you'd see when we'd interact with families that it's all about getting 10-mile runs in every morning, eating whole grains and chicken and vegetables. And then we'd be at a party and their kid would be hidden in the corner with a bucket of chocolate, just shoving that stuff in his mouth as fast as he
yeah,
can. And
right.
it's like, yeah, like are you doing like, is that really what you're trying to accomplish, right? And do we ever stop and think about just because we were raised a certain way, or we have these ideas, is the outcome what we're after,
Right.
right? And so, you know, that's one of, I guess I'm very outcome driven
Hmm.
more than ideological. So,
No, I think that's great. And I think it also comes down to explaining your whys. So if you say no to something and you have a valid reason for why you're telling your child no, that's okay, but explain why you're saying that so that they're not left with a mystery, or they're not left with, oh, my parents are so lame, they're not letting me go to this party or whatever it is. If you explain why, it kind of avoids some of that. And when it's hard to explain why, my parents would say, it's because I love you. And if I didn't love you, I would let you do X, right? And so that's kind of a cop out, but really good thing because it's hard to argue.
I agree. Yeah, right. You're not going to agree on everything, but you're going to have to work it out as best you can. And you will be in situations where you're not the final decision maker and it's not going to go the way you want. And yeah, that's life.
Yeah. No, but you're teaching them how to communicate, how to express their feelings, how to stand up for themselves, how to
Yeah.
negotiate. I mean, all
Yeah.
of that is good things, and you learn more about how your children think and you can use that information later on when parenting them, in another occasion, because you understand kind of their thought process and their feelings and things that matter to them. So Yeah, no, I think that's a positive way to go about things for sure.
Yeah, that it, it's tough in the moment, but yeah.
Yeah. No, so you come across as someone who is fearless. And I know with your background in the military, there are plenty of stories, I'm sure some that you can't even share that would back that up. But when it came to having a daughter for the first time or for the third time, I would love to hear about any potential fears that you had or just general feelings around being a dad to a daughter.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Right. So, yeah. So I've, just about 3 years of combat time overseas, and it's kind of funny when it's your life that's on the line. Even though I had a family, I never worried about any kind of outcome. Um, I knew the worst outcome would be to be permanently disabled, and a better outcome would be dead, because then my family gets stroked a fat check, right? And I know it's a messed up way of thinking about it. Um, but when having a child, all of a sudden, it's like, holy cow! Like I started to run down this like rabbit hole of all the things that could happen to them outside of my control. And I just realized very quickly, well, I got to get my, like, you got to put that out of your mind. You got to acknowledge the fact of life is that, shit happens, right? And you got to you really, like, that was my first real challenge at having to just like gain control over those thoughts and just letting them go, right? One thing I've never really worried about, and I know it's going to sound counter to everything we just kind of talked about, I really don't sweat raising my kids right. No matter what you do, and I can give you a great example. I have a friend who grew up, his dad was super into sports. All the sons had to be. They were all on tier one teams, um, and everything else, right? My dad was a ski instructor in college, grew up hunting on my grandfather's land, which is immense. We're talking like mile after mile of ranch land in Montana or Wyoming, one of those two. And he grew up hunting that, avid hunter, ski instructor, and was in a barbershop quartet of all things that traveled up and down through California while he was in college, singing. You know what? Three things my dad's never done with me: taught me to sing, took me skiing, or took me hunting. Right? And so you see the kid whose parent was, in a sense, overbearing, if you want to use that negative word, right? And makes them do, and my mom did. That was my mom, foreign languages and piano. I hated every minute of it. And then I'm over here irritated that my dad didn't take me skiing, hunting, and taught me to sing, right? It's like there is a certain extent of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't when it comes to kids, right?
Hmm.
Like they'll always see what you did or did not do and wish you had done whatever it was you didn't do. And there is an extent to that that's just unavoidable, right? And then the other fact of the matter is that all your kids are their own individual person.
Right.
And I'm a major nerd, never played sports. All I did is read as a kid, had no friends, basically. If I did, it'd be like one at a time. Um, I am not a handy guy, and I'm not an athlete. All right. My son, from the time he was born, you could just sit him 3 months old. People would like babysit him. They would come back from babysit, like, um, your kid just sat there and watched Sports Center the whole time. I'm like, oh yeah. No, he knew three at the age of 3, he knew 3 words: balls, boobs, and juice.
Oh.
That's the extent of his entire vocabulary. Okay. He went bananas for any kind of sport. Had a crazy arm on him from the time he could stand. That was his thing, right? And I remember carrying him through Home Depot. The first time we walked into Home Depot, you'd never seen a happy. He just lit up. So where does this kid's love of sports and tools come from? Because it didn't come from me. It
Hmm.
didn't come from the environment he was raised in. We're talking 3 months into 6 months old. These were already things that were ingrained in him, right? So it's like there's a certain element of your children. I don't know where it comes from, but it comes with them, right?
Hmm.
Then they have the things that they learn from their parents, their environment, their teachers, their friends, their siblings, where they fall into sibling order, their astrological signs, whatever you want to add into there, that all just gets woven together, right? They are their own person. And I don't care how much you think you can try to raise the perfect kids, it ain't up to you to a certain extent, right? And so that's one thing. I just kind of like let go, kind of like I did in the military. I let go of the need to live. And one thing I noticed is the guys that were most concerned about it, they're not here anymore. And I see these parents that they can't let go of the need to make their kids turn out a certain way. And those kids are the ones that I see with the most problems. And so I think I can't even remember. I know I'm way off your question, probably. I can't remember what it was.
It's
But
okay.
there's just the ability to create a framework um, that you allow your kids to exist in that allows them to be them with guidance from you. And I don't know, it just for us, I'm just speaking for us. I always
Hmm.
talk like I think I'm right about everything. So, but for us, it's just really resulted in kids that are pretty well rounded. Um, they're all like, I've literally had almost no problems with them. Actually, one thing that's hard for people to believe, but with 4 kids, I've seen my kids fight one time with each. And a lot of that comes from being military kids. You raise them where it's like you have to be a team.
Hmm.
You're all like you're the ones that are gonna have to rely on each other. And so that was the other thing too, is we would never get involved in any of their conflicts or arguments with each other. It was just, hey, I'm not there. I'm not. I couldn't witness it. I'm not going to sit here and try and figure out which one of the two of you is right about it. Go away and deal with it. And we did that right out of the gate with them. And it really resulted in these 4 kids they're all their own best friends. Um, they they literally never fought with each other, and there's nobody they'd all rather hang out with than themselves.
Oh.
And it's just one of the neatest things to see. And I really think it came about because just creating that framework that let them exist and be who they were.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so
No, I love that. I think there's two things that stand out there. The first is control what you can control, which I
yeah,
think is just a good life lesson for anyone of any age and in any stage of life. The more that we can let go of the things that we can't control, the happier we'll be, the more our mental health will be at peace. And then the second thing, you talked a lot about kind of like that nature versus nurture phenomenon, right? And there's always those debates like, is it nature? Is it nurture? And I think like realistically, the answer has to be both because you're right. There is a lot of nature elements that come into your children. They are born with their kind of personalities, their individual
yeah,
uniqueness, and their passions and all these things. But then at the same time, the nurture element is important too. So how you raise your
absolutely.
children. Yeah. And like
Yeah,
even for you, it seems like your parenting style is a lot about teaching independence and kind of helping your children navigate through life by teaching them lessons and talking about outcomes. And even if you call that like more hands-off parenting, that is technically a parenting, that's an action of how you parent. And so that's or your nurture element. But like you said, I mean, children of they come in all kinds of different shapes, sizes, all the things. And so when you parent them all the same, you're going to have different outcomes with each child. And so you can't stress too much about raising the perfect child because your routines and your processes for raising that one child aren't going to be the same for the next child. And so
no,
at a
definitely
certain
not.
point, yeah, you got to kind of like surrender to how they will be, how they will
Yeah,
grow. But yeah.
I don't know. And so you were talking about nature versus nurture. I think it's 3 things. I think it's nature, nurture, and I think there's something else nobody's identified yet. And I think it comes from birth. It's part of them. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where they come from. But I think they come into this existence a certain way, and then we just add to it through nature and through nurture.
Hmm.
I definitely think there's something they're bringing to the table there, and I got no idea where it comes from, but it's
Well,
it's I think makes raising kids amazing and fun.
Yeah. I mean, if it was a cookie cutter, like do this and they'll turn out this way, I mean, yeah, where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
But I think that just goes to show you the importance of knowing your children, right? Like you
Absolutely.
clearly pay attention and you know how they act, what their personalities are, what they care about, and then you use that information to help navigate parenthood. And I think that that's something that everyone should do, and that's a human thing, right? Like you should understand your partner, you should understand your employees, your coworkers, and be able to hold conversations accordingly because everyone is so different and people, you know, they'll respond differently to different things. So the more you understand them, the better off you'll be.
Yep, yep. Now that my 15-year-old is the cheer captain, I finally figured out how to get her to keep a room clean. So she loves to throw these crazy rager parties with like hundreds of kids on the weekends. And so it was really simple. You want to throw the parties, you got to keep your room clean. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I finally got something.
There you go. I
Uh,
mean, you knew her passions and you were able to parent accordingly.
but yeah, yeah, no, and actually, so it's kind of funny too because I'm watching it and I'm thinking, I want to be able to hire her to do events because she doesn't. These aren't just like send out a text message out. She like themes them, decorates for them. I mean, it's like her. She's got 4 or 5 friends over, and they're all like doing all the prep work. They stick around. They do all the cleanup. Like it's funny because even like something that kind of generally has a negative connotation with it, you know, kids throwing huge parties. But I still can literally, I'm literally watching her develop a skill set
Hmm.
at 15. So,
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier, just about kind of letting them do their things and navigate risk and understand like, okay, if you want to do this, then here's some of the potential consequences, but also you're allowing them to go out and potentially fail because you understand that there's going to be learning lessons from that. And clearly she's, yeah, developing skills and learning different social connections and
no, no. I
whatnot.
mean,
So,
I mean, she really is. You know, it's like if you want the party, you've got to clean it up, right? I mean, just that simple thing. There's that reward versus cost. You know, is it worth it to you to host the party if you gotta if your friend? I mean, it literally takes them like hours afterwards to clean up, right? But they don't mind, right? And so it's just, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's just neat to like give your kids the opportunity of what they want to do within that framework, within that structure, to where they're not avoiding the cost of what they're doing, right? They have to take that into account as part of their decision making process.
yeah.
So,
No, I love that framework in general.
yeah, that was my parents. My parents had a rule: you can do anything you wanted to do. They just better not be able to tell you did it.
That's fair.
It's pretty awesome.
I feel like I was a little bit more my parents were harder on me in that sense just because more than anything, you know, I was the oldest of three girls and like I just wasn't, you know, I wasn't necessarily allowed to do a lot of things, but I also wasn't not allowed. It was again this kind of like call me no matter what policy. They never told
Yeah,
me don't drink alcohol until you're 21, but they were never like pushing it on me either and saying, you know, so it was kind of like, hey, just so you know, I know you're going to that party. If you need help with anything, you call me. And it was nice just knowing that my parents had my back. Like I found peace knowing that they wanted me to make the right decisions. And they were kind of always testing me and like kind of seeing how I would make these decisions if I was going to these parties and if I'm coming home, you know, how am I acting? And I was a good girl and so I was able to get more and more responsibility and independence. You know, they were flexible with me and allowed me to do more because I kept my grades up and I was always honest with them. That was another thing. It was like, if I ever catch you lying, oh, game over for me.
yep. That no,
So,
that is one of our absolute uh, zero tolerance in our household
mhm,
is lying.
yeah.
I don't care what comes out of your mouth as long as you're not lying to me about it, right? But I was gonna throw something in. One of the things I love like parenting today because there's so many things that make it so easy. So like all my kids, have their own Uber account. It's all through the family account, right? It's all on their phones. And what's fantastic about it is like my daughter's in Orlando, the 15-year-old, and anytime she goes anywhere, guess what I know? I
Where
know
she
where
is.
she's going
Yeah.
because the Uber keeps telling me, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about them like driving drunk or anything like that.
Hmm.
They just Uber everywhere, right? So there's a
Right.
lot of risk that's kind of taken off the table today with technology that definitely didn't exist when I was a kid or even
Yeah.
when my oldest was growing up, right?
Yeah. True. Even just
So I
having each
wanted
other's
to,
locations
yeah, oh
is,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you got this whole tracker on them, right?
Yeah.
So you talked about being the oldest, and that was one thing that I wanted to hit on. I One of the negative experiences I guess that I had as a kid that um, I had an older sister. I was the second out of four. The oldest was a girl, and I know that she felt that as the oldest daughter, there was all this responsibility dumped on her, um, and and then because she was a girl, she thought a lot of it had to do with the fact she was a girl as well, and it just created a lot of resentment and whatnot, right? And so I was always technically really hoping that my oldest would be a boy. Um, I don't know if that would have helped anything or not. I don't know why I thought it would. But then when my first was a girl, that was one thing I was very cognizant of. I didn't want her to grow up with the same um, resentments that because she was a girl, she was expected to like cook meals or do dishes or the traditional. I'm not. I'm very much an old school guy. Um, but I still want to be aware of not making somebody feel like because they are this, then that is what
Right.
has to be done, right? Um, and so I'm sure though if you talk to my oldest daughter, I'm sure she still feels because she's the oldest and she was a girl, that there was some of those things put onto her. But I can't tell you whether or not she feels this way or not. The entire time I raised her, it was done with an awareness that being the oldest, I wanted to be very careful not to put undue responsibility on her,
Hmm.
not to take her for granted, not to put things on her just because she was a girl or the oldest, right?
Yeah.
Who knows if that helped or not, but
Well, I think that your general military team approach probably helped prevent some of those issues because it's not all on her, right? Like you guys operate as a team, as a family, and so that's the first thing that I would say is positive there. And the second is that I've met Madeline, great name by the way, your oldest daughter, and she is
you spelled it.
amazing. Oh yeah, I spelled it wrong. Um, no, she is amazing. She is just driven. She's got a great career going for herself. And another thing that I think is a testament to you and to your ex-wife is she married an incredible man. Miles cares so much about her. It's so evident. I saw the two of them together. It's, they have an adorable little love and
Yeah, they're one of those like storybook relationships, so it's
yeah,
pretty wild.
they do. They are. Yeah. So again, I feel lucky that I got to meet her multiple times. But she's a great girl, so don't worry about that. Definitely responsible. So
I
but I do
appreciate it.
think that that's it's an oldest child natural.
Yeah,
That's the nature, right? Like
yeah.
we are oldest children, and that is it's a common stereotype for a reason. So as much as you can avoid
I'll
that and
take it.
yeah, and to help mitigate some of those anxieties, it is kind of part of being an oldest child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah. Well,
So.
we're wrapping up on time here, but I would love for you to leave the audience with one piece of advice for the dads out there. You've given lots of advice today, as you always do, but just one thing that you think they should keep in mind when it comes to raising daughters.
I I think it's more important than ever for daughters to get a loving man's perspective on life and relationships, right? And so that's all I think the most important thing any dad can do is just make sure they have the kind of relationship with their daughter where they can talk about relationships and they can talk about the different struggles that take place within relationships. And those struggles are money, physical, just all of it, just all of it, right? And so I think that just to be open with your daughters, to be able to communicate about those sensitive topics, have them know that they can trust you, that they can be comfortable, and that's something that you can't just start doing later when they're already grown and expect it to be there. Like the sooner it's one of those things that you've got to start having those kind of conversations and making it that way as early as possible. So I just say, start today, and breach every topic and knock down those walls, knock down those barriers. Because, I don't know who's better, who loves them more, who cares more about their future than you as their father, right? So you should want the information they're getting about all of these topics to come from you. So,
Love that. Well, thank you, Elliot. You were an amazing guest and had so many great stories and lessons and advice. And I can't wait to put this out there.
yeah, well, thank you. I'm as always, extremely grateful to be part of your project. And I'm glad to be here. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you for tuning into Girl Dad, the podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow girl dad. I read every review and truly take your words to heart. To close out, remember, your intentional moments make lasting legacies. See you next week.